Good morning and welcome to All People's Church, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Mary Kerwin and I will be your co-celebrant this morning. In the pulpit is our frequent guest and friend, Kendra Weddle. Kendra's day job is at North Haven United Methodist in Dallas as their scholar in residence. Kendra holds a PhD in religious studies, and her areas of interest include spirituality, feminism, and interfaith trends. She lives in Irving with her husband, Brian, and their chocolate lab retriever, Rue. Welcome back, Kendra. And as Unitarian Universalists, we are part of a long tradition of religious freedom, theological inclusiveness, and community acceptance, and we cherish our diversities of race, age, ability, politics, theology, sexual orientation, culture, and ethnicity. We are bound together not by any creed, but by the promises we affirm together, and all who find themselves in harmony with those promises are welcome in this church. If you're a visitor today and haven't signed in, please do so. There's a visitor's table by the front door. Signing in will give us the opportunity to acknowledge your visit and place you on our mailing list to receive our weekly emails and our monthly newsletter. And before we continue on to our service, please note a couple of announcements. First, please mark your calendar and plan to come to the next Spectrum Chamber Music Society concert here at All People's Church on Monday, March 31st, which is also April Fool's Day Eve. The program is called Nothing Serious and will showcase the whimsical side of classic music. They tell us to expect a few musical pranks along the way. Also, announcing the Don't Forget to Feed Me Hungry Hound Hustle is a 5K fun run and will be on Saturday, April 26th. All People's Church is a sponsor of this event, and we hope to field a team of our own walkers and runners. Don't Forget to Feed Me is the Fort Worth area pet food bank, which we've supported for the last 5 years. See Joe Burnham for more information, as well as the poster located in the church foyer. So I think that's it for announcements, and we'll now please settle comfortably for our musical prelude.
Thank you, Misha. Our opening words this morning come from Chad Snyder, entitled, Know This. We truly know far less than we think we do, but let us know this much. We are not alone in our joy, in our loss, in our quiet, daily, blessed, ordinary moments. We are not alone. A small truth, maybe, in a vast and rapid world, but let us hold that truth and trust it. As we hold and trust the joys and sorrows and moments shared in this space, we make holy.
The chalice lighting, opening hymn, and spoken affirmation. Our chalice lighting words this morning are from Reverend Scott Taylor. We gather today to receive the blessings of trust. May the relationships in this room remind us we do not have to depend only on ourselves. May the quiet we share help us hear and renew our faith in that still small voice inside. May the music sung inspire us to hold tight to the restorative rhythms of the world. May the words offered remind us that we too have a voice, one that must be trusted and shared. With our hearts open, let us begin. We will join now in singing our opening hymn. The hymn of the month for March is number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Please join in our affirmation. The words are found in the order of service and on the screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Now the young and the young at heart are invited to come forward for our time for all ages here at the front of the chancel.
Good morning. Hi. It's good to see all of you here today. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Good. It's nice to see you today. So some of you may remember I read to you a little bit from this book a few weeks ago. And I want to to read a little more part of the story, but let me remind you that it was about Amaya, who was this little dog. You see the little dog here? This is Amaya. And here's the wolf. And you might remember that Amaya was kind of in trouble because a bunch of other wolves were kind of coming after her, but the big wolf saved her and got her to safety. So now we're going to take up the story again, where she and the big wolf are together again, and now it's evening. You see, it was snowing. So the snow showed no signs of stopping, and so Amaya and the wolf sought refuge in the cave. Here's Amaya and the wolf. And he had led this pack for almost a decade, but the wolf was now badly wounded from the fight, and he was getting a little old. And so he thought if they stayed in the cave, he might recover, but he thought that maybe that wasn't the best thing for Amaya. But he still had no idea what was going to come next. And Amaya walked out of the cave, and she sat down by the wolf, and you see the moon? You see the big moon here? You see the moon? And so the wolf asked Amaya, "Where are your parents?" And Amaya said, "I don't know. We were separated in a storm." "Do you know which direction they might be?" he asked. And Amaya shook her head. No, she didn't know. And the wolf said, "You know, to reach any destination, you need to have a direction. Do you know where we should go?" And Amaya just shook her head. No, she didn't know. She was silent for a minute, but then she remembered, and so she turned to the wolf and she said, "One time my mom talked to me about the moon. She said that if you followed the moon with all your heart, it would take you where you needed to be. If you followed the moon, it would take you where you needed to be." The wolf was like, "Oh, that's not really true." But then he saw Amaya's response, and her face just got all droopy because she was sad that he didn't believe her. And so then the wolf said, "Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the right way." But he said, "You know what? If we don't go anywhere, that surely isn't the right way." So they decided to go on an adventure together. And he said, "So we should start now." So there they are, and they're getting ready to start on their adventure by following the moon. And he said, "We have to start now because you never know when the clouds will come, and we'll wish we had taken the chance while we had it." So they left to go follow the moon. And here, do you see the trees? And then here's the moon here. So as they went through the trees, Amaya couldn't help but notice that the wolf was limping. His injuries were getting kind of hard for him to bear. And she said, "Are you all right?" And the wolf was not all right. But he said, despite this, he knew the path he had to take was to protect her. And so they kept going. And he said, "I'm kind of breaking down, but I feel as though something inside me is changing and growing stronger." And Amaya looked into the eyes of the wolf. You can see she's looking here. She looked into the eyes of the wolf and she said, "Are you sure we could stop and rest more?" And the wolf said, "No. The path ahead is perhaps the most difficult one I will ever travel, but I will embrace it." And that's part of the story I want us to remember today. The path ahead might be difficult, but it's the one we need to take. Okay? Can you remember that for me today?
Yeah.
And we all have a path to take, and it's a good one for us. Thank you for coming and sharing some time with me this morning. I hope you have a great rest of the day. And now I think we will sing them out.
The offering we take each Sunday is an opportunity to recommit to our church and to our people. It is as much a ritual as singing together, lighting our chalice, or reciting our unison affirmation. It is a reminder of that form of love we call generosity. It is how we show that we believe it is important to worship together, to help our community, and to say yes to the values of our faith. It is our custom to share the undesignated cash offering that are collected each week. We do this on a quarterly basis for a nonprofit or a charitable organization. Our Share the Plate recipient for the first quarter of 2025 is the Tarrant County Reading Partners. If you prefer, donations can be made using the QR code that is on the back of the order of service. Now the gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. Will the ushers and the choir please come forward?
Jubilate Deo. Jubilate Deo. Jubilate Deo. Jubilate, jubilate, jubilate Deo. Jubilate Deo.
That was so wonderful, choir. Thank you so much. The reading this morning comes from the Christian New Testament book of Luke. And it goes like this. Then Jesus said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of wealth that will belong to me. So he divided his assets among them. A few days later, this younger son gathered all that he had and traveled to a distant region, and there he squandered his wealth in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that region, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to the citizens of that region, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to his senses, he said, How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare, but here I am dying of hunger? I will get up, and I will go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. So he set off, and he went to his father. But while he was still far in the distance, his father saw him and had compassion. And he ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. And then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his attendants, Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost and is now found. And they began to celebrate. Now the older son was in the field, and he came and approached the house, and he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. And he replied, Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he got him back safe and sound. Then he became angry and refused to go any further. His father came out and began to plead with him, but he answered his father, Listen, for all these years I have been working for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours comes back, he has devoured your assets, and you killed the fatted calf for him. Then the father said to this son, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. But when we had to celebrate and rejoice because your brother, the one that was dead, has come to life, he that was lost has been found.
At this time in our service, we pause to honor and to give time and attention to those things most important to us. We gather here for healing and for peace in our hearts, and to honor our time together with the shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week, there's a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you can write a message of memory or hope before the service. We honor these messages by lighting 3 candles here next to our chalice. Also, at any time during our service, you are welcome to come forward and light a candle in our meditation center that is here to my left at the side of the chancel. In our book of memory and hope this morning, we have one joyful story, and that is that we are saying happy 51st birthday to Guy Thornton. It's the 33rd anniversary of Guy's 18th birthday. So Guy, please stand and be recognized. I know you're back there. Thank you, Misha. March birthdays are the best. We now pause at this time to hold and to honor the sorrows and celebrations among us, including those deeply felt but left here unspoken. Now please center yourselves quietly and hear the words of Reverend Marta Valentin. Spirit of this world and beyond, we strive to keep conscious our interconnections, our interdependence, our trust in one another as human beings. In truth and with compassion, for we know that what we send out to the universe is what will return. Let us now pause for a moment of silent meditation and music.
New York Times writer David Brooks asks, what is one thing you would do except that you've let fear get in the way? I can think of several. Parachuting out of an airplane, going on a long-distance pilgrimage, moving to a different country. I recently read How We Learn to Be Brave by Bishop Marianne Booty, whom we now know as the bishop who spoke at the prayer service as part of the inaugural events in January. People have recognized her extraordinary courage in that moment, and some have realized how that courage must continue given the threats she continually faces today. And in her book, she makes the point that being brave is not something that happens to us, but rather it is a muscle that we develop only when we practice it. So in light of her encouragement for us to be awake to the decisive moments in our lives, I want today to invite us to wonder about this story that we've probably all heard before today. And this story is usually called the parable of the prodigal son. So to help us get into this story, let's give the son some descriptive names. How about David the diligent? He's the one who stayed home. And Wes the wanderer is the one who, wandered. So in this account, and against all customs of what might even be considered simple familial courtesy, Wes asked to get his inheritance portion early so that he can leave home and see what the wide, big world has to offer. And his father should have said no and put him in his place. But why doesn't he? So maybe we should give the father a name too. How about duped dad? The father's decision to share his wealth with his wayward son is more than a surprise, however. It's shameful. In the ancient world, social expectations were driven by the motivation to gain honor, as well as the motivation to avoid shame. And these were powerful ways that shaped how people acted. It created the social order. So when the father transgressed the cultural expectations by giving Wes the wanderer his share of his inheritance, he was accepting the fact that he and his family would then therefore be shamed. In other words, by giving away his inheritance before he died, he was willing for his reputation, his honor, to be maligned. When Jesus told his story, his listeners would have known that duped dad had just ruined his reputation, and they would have thought to themselves, what a foolish, foolish thing to do. But wayward West was foolish too. In asking for his share before his father died, he was essentially pronouncing his father dead. His actions, like his father's, were shameful. So right from the start, this parable invites us to see both the parent and the younger son in a negative fashion. So off Wes the wanderer goes. He gathers all that he has, which is another way of saying that he probably sold the land and took all of the proceeds, and he traveled as far as he could go. And it doesn't take long, however, before he squanders all that he was given. A famine hits, and he falls on especially difficult times, and he lands in a pigsty. And while finding himself ankle deep in pig dew and feeling hunger pangs, it occurs to him that his father's workers had plenty to eat. And so this epiphany drives Wes the wanderer's decision to return home But he asks his father to take him in no longer as a son, but as a worker. And his father realizes that by taking his inheritance and losing it, he now has only a different standing within his family. He's no longer a son. Whatever he might be given from this point on, he believed he would have to earn it. Only by the sweat of his brow could he fill his stomach. Now, while all of this is occurring, let's not forget that diligent David has been putting in his time. He's been faithful to his father, working the fields, tending the animals, maintaining the inheritance that would one day be his. And day in and day out, he's been present, reliable, steady, diligent. And we know that when Wes the Wanderer returned home, diligent David wasn't all that thrilled. But I wonder what he thought when his brother first left. Did he wish that he could go too? Why didn't Wes ask him to join him? In fact, we don't get to know anything about the relationship of brothers. Was diligent David upset that he couldn't think of such an adventuresome plan? Did he feel pigeonholed into his diligence because Wes thought of wandering first? We're told that diligent David had been out working in the fields doing his familial duty when he returned home, and he heard the music and playing and could see people dancing in celebration. So no wonder he was angry when he found out that wandering west had returned home and had been given a party. The brother who had shamed his family? Really? Okay, so I know enough about myself to know that I would have felt just like diligent David. I would have been upset that I had been working all the time, being dutiful and diligent and following all the rules. I was the one who had to witness how wandering Wes had grieved my father, how he had borne the shame of his community, how people looked askance at me, wondering if I was prone to wander too. Well, we could do a lot with falling into comparisons, can't we? Let's just say, for the sake of this story, that all of us can resonate to some degree or another with diligent David when he complained to his father. Now, many times I've heard this parable interpreted as God will always welcome us back. Like when we are lost and we return to God, we will be welcomed with open arms and celebration. And okay, fair enough. But I've come to wonder if there isn't more here. You see, a key feature of parables is that there's a twist. There's something that isn't quite right. It doesn't make sense. And if we can put our finger on that twist, we can begin to interrogate the story in new ways, seeking fuller possibilities of what it might mean. So the question for us is, well, what is the twist here? What is it that doesn't make sense? Let me suggest to you that the twist is in the father and how the father welcomes the son home. When he sees Wes the Wanderer returning home, duped dad runs out to greet him and falls upon his neck and kisses him affectionately and gives instructions to his workers to create a lavish meal and party. The problem is that is not how fathers should act in the ancient world. And it was women who did the greeting when a traveler was coming. It would either have been the girls or the mother of the home who would have ran out to meet the person traveling. And furthermore, it would not have been appropriate for a father to exude this kind of affection, kissing and hugging the son. Those actions would have shamed, duped Dad a second time. That would have diminished his honor. And yet, for this second time, this parent had not hesitated to act graciously toward his son, even when it was detrimental to himself. And then, in one final act of incredulity, the father orchestrates a reunion party, but not only that, he restores to Wes the wanderer the status of son, not servant. He gives him the best robe, presumably the father's robe. The ring that was probably the signet ring that gives the son status. To have sandals put on his feet would have meant he was superior to the workers. All of these items are clues intended to suggest that the son who was lost has now come home to his place as a son. But our story doesn't end there. We still have this older son who is in an emotional fit over his brother's return. And when he complains that wandering Wes gets all the goods while he has slaved away at home, his father responds with familial language. Son, you are always with me, and everything that is mine is yours. It's almost so short, we miss it. Everything that is mine is yours. In both of these cases, the brothers seem to think that their relationship to their father is determined by what they do, by their actions. They must do the father's bidding in some way or another. And in both cases, the mother-father responds that they are family and that what they do has no bearing on their status. The parent is uninterested in morality or inheritance. It's more fundamental than that. It's about identity and relationship. The divine parent is willing to lose honor and to accept shame, not once, but multiple times. But further, the parent offers an example to us of someone who refuses to be hemmed in by society or by cultural mores, and they willingly transgressed them at every turn in order to live a life that's shaped by a higher law, that of love and compassion. Now, I'm sure that you know that recently a Texas state representative filed a bill that could charge transgender people with gender identity fraud, making it illegal to identify as trans on official documents and potentially leading to jail time. And this bill would make it a state jail felony if a person knowingly makes a false and misleading verbal or written statement by identifying their sex assigned at birth incorrectly to a government entity or their employer. Last month, a different Texas state representative filed a bill that would make it illegal for a healthcare provider to treat any patient, including adults, with puberty-suppressing medication, hormone therapies, or surgeries if the purpose of the treatment is to affirm the patient's gender identity. Texas has become a leading state in providing blueprints to other states to restrict trans rights. This is our time to be like the parent in the parable and love with abandon. because of our current situation where one group is being targeted, we must step up to the plate and be advocates, allies, and agitators. Bishop Booty writes that our stepping up moments may seem small, but they have a cumulative effect, and there may be far more at stake every time we choose to step up than we realize. We're never more alive, she writes, than when we take our turn at the most necessary things, when we fulfill the deeper purpose of our lives, when we know ourselves to be accepted despite our failings, and when we are called to do something brave. I think there's one question left in this story that we haven't answered. We don't know if diligent David decided to participate in the party for wandering west. If he refuses to party, it must be because he believes his brother to be beyond forgivable, or that his father has offered too much forgiveness. Isn't this the bind we often find ourselves in too when we accept binary thinking? What if, however, we can imagine a third option, a paradox where we arrive at insight or new ways of living and being? Maybe the older brother decided to let go of his need to measure up, of his inclination to be the diligent one who stayed home. What if, in letting go of his perspective, he embraced the example of his divine parent, who had consistently and methodically demonstrated love? What if he heard and understood, "You are always with me. All that I have is yours"? The only appropriate response was to don his party attire and dance in celebration. As it turns out, what they were really celebrating was the joy of belonging, of compassion, of abiding love that has no end. So our only question, friend, is, are we ready to be brave and join the party? Yes. Yes, we are. So let's stand and sing together our closing hymn, which is number 311, "Let It Be a Dance." Friends, hear this benediction. Let us go forth from here and do the work we need to do and join the dance. Amen. Please stay for coffee and conversation before you leave.